Welcome to the second in our series of 3 interviews for Libraries Week. Thank you very much for registering, and I hope you will have a good evening and that you'll come again tomorrow. On Monday, we talked to Chloe Tallock from Shetland Library. Tomorrow, we're going to be talking to Andy Linehan, the curator from the British Library's popular music collections. And tonight we're going to be hearing from Dan Marshall, who is the, I have to get his title right, Collections and Audience Development Officer for Sheffield Library's Archives and Information. Dan isn't able to be with us this evening, but if you have any comments or thoughts you'd like to share as we go through the interview, please feel free to leave those in the Q&A section. We'll meet you again at the other end of the video. Afterwards, we'll send you an email which will have a short feedback form. It'd be really helpful if you could fill that in for us. Help us to develop our future events if we know what you think. We'd also send the link to tomorrow's event, and after that, I'm going to say thank you for joining us, and now we'll see the video of Dan's interview. It'll last about 20 minutes.
My name's Dan Marshall. I'm the Collections and Audience Development Officer at Sheffield Libraries, and that's kind of a citywide remit, really. I have responsibility with others for buying and managing our printed and digital collections, but also for all the aspects of our audience development work. So that includes coordinating regular activities, organising programmes of one-off events such as author talks, lectures, workshops, that sort of thing. It's our promotional activity and also consultation, that sort of thing. So yeah, that's me. Lots of fingers in lots of different pies, I suppose you could say. I sometimes feel like I'm spread a little thin, but it does make for variety, and it gets me lots of interesting people. And yeah, I suppose I'm quite grateful for that.
And where are you at the moment?
So I'm currently in the Central Library, Sheffield Central Library. I split my time, like lots of people, between home working and the office, and the office is Central Library. I'm actually in the old city librarian's office because I wanted to provide a background that looked quite library-ish, if you like, as opposed to my office, which is covered in, it's just made up of heaps of paper and all sorts of bits and bobs that sort of make up the daily sort of routine in reality. Yeah, hopefully this looks good.
Looks fabulous. So Central Library, do you want to tell us a bit about that?
Sure. So, yeah, Sheffield Central Library. It's a large listed building, built opened 1934, I think, and it grew out of the vision, as I understand it, of the then city librarian who wanted to and sold this vision for a library that was state of the art, that was like no other, that sort of met the needs, the very real needs of Sheffield at that time. And it was a huge success early on, I believe, and has done lots of great stuff since. I'm told that at the time we had people visiting from all over Europe to see it. And it's quite fun to kind of walk around with someone that has some of that knowledge, of the heritage features, and pick bits out that are still all there, although often hidden beneath 1960s editions and that sort of thing. It's spread across multiple floors, which is fine, but a bit of a problem since our access hasn't really been improved since 1934. Two floors of stack below ground. So that works out at about 5 miles of shelving in the building altogether, which I'm told again, if you spread it out back to back, end to end, that would extend from Central Library and City Centre up to the High Moors on the Peak District, which is quite a fun thought. We have all the usual library functions and rooms. We also have a theatre, a flexible event space, business centre, and a gallery on the top floor as well, although that's managed by Sheffield Museums, and was a condition on on the council receiving some money which went towards building the place back in the 30s from a local philanthropist.
Mhm.
It's interesting. I mean, a lot of people, a lot of Sheffielders have a great deal of affection for the building. It's been here a long time. It's played a big and important part in lots of people's lives. My own relationship with it, I suppose, is quite complex. I both love it, but at times hate it because it is so old and inflexible, and I can see the potential, and yet we sometimes struggle to realise it. It's widely known to be falling apart, and there's been this question mark over the future of the building for years. But I think despite that, it limps on. We do our best. We do our best to create a kind of city centre destination, one that is still meeting those needs of Sheffielders today. So I know we do our best to contribute to digital inclusion, to promote literacy, to tackle this epidemic of loneliness which is sweeping the nation, and I think to provide a truly democratic, civic space for cultural participation, which personally I think is vital, for the long-term prospects of the country, to encourage our own creativity and all that sort of stuff, which will help us succeed as a nation.
So who are the Sheffielders who come to the library?
It's a genuine cross-section. So Sheffield, like many cities, is a really diverse place. We have a massive social divide as well, and that translates to very different needs. To put that into perspective, the life expectancy gap between the relatively wealthy southwest of the city, on the edge of the Peak District, and sadly much poorer northeast is 12 years, which will give you, it's amazing. It's awful. But it'll give you an idea of the range of needs that we see walking through the door. And also because Sheffield is built on 7 hills, all the main roads, all the bus routes, they run into town. And so in the Central Library, we see people coming from all over town, and they are side by side, shoulder by shoulder, and accessing those services together. So that's really interesting. And I suppose it makes for quite an interesting place to work. Lots of different things going on. I mean, at the moment, we're very much building back up our services, post-pandemic, but I hope it won't be too long before we do see all of our old services running as before, and plus lots of new things as well, because needs have changed. So what would that include? Baby times, story times, writing workshops, poetry meets, play reading, deaf social group, craft, art workshops, business startup, IT sorts of, but the stuff, the list goes on and on and on. And that's before the bread and butter stuff, the study space that people come in for, the free IT, and of course the books, our main business. We lend an awful lot of books, and we all know the life-changing magic of reading, and I suppose we're pretty well placed. We've got about 500,000 of them. We're pretty well placed, along with every other library in the country, to help people experience that power, that magic.
Did you find new opportunities through COVID?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, the digital thing was most interesting, and this is what we're trying to work out. One of the things we're trying to work out now. We'd never run digital activities before. We'd never used Zoom or anything like it, which meant that although we had quite a successful events program, activities program, we had thousands coming along every year to take part in groups, or listen to authors, or meet historians, academics, draw together, read together, so on. I suppose we were always limited by the capacity of our rooms, and then COVID came along, and we had to quickly learn how to do all these things and other things through Zoom. And we were blown away by the response and how many people engaged and got involved. So, I mean, many more, tens of thousands more used us digitally than we're doing before. And we had a lot of people using us before. So now we need to work out how we do both, I suppose. with the same resources. So that's a bit of a challenge, something we need to think about really carefully. But because people clearly want both, just this last weekend, we had an event, our first set of live events in the Central Library. We had lectures, we had authors, we had craft workshops, a poetry meet again, all those things I was mentioning earlier, lots of stuff going on, live music. And everyone came. They were all free events, and we weren't sure if anyone would come. Typically, if you run a free event, there's always a few people that drop out, a significant proportion, if I'm honest, that drop out. And yet everyone came, and those that did come were so pleased to be there. They were delighted to be in a room having a shared cultural experience with other people outside of their own little bubble. So that was interesting.
We've got we've noticed that craft events, so like sort of not just for children but wider age group, have just been people just desperate to get their hands on stuff in somewhere with somebody else. It's amazing.
There's that explosion of creativity during the pandemic, wasn't there? Especially early on. A colleague of mine ran baking. Baking, drawing, poetry, gardening, everything. We have a micro exhibition on in our foyer at the moment, showcasing some of the work that that local people produced in the first lockdown. We were putting out daily prompts, creative prompts to people, and we were kind of bombarded with poetry and sketches and crochet and all sorts of things, really. And it's lovely, it's beautiful, and really moving stuff as well.
Yeah, I think there's been quite a human opening, I think. Do you want to tell us a bit about your job, perhaps what you do, and maybe a typical day, if there is such a thing?
Yeah, I'm not sure there is such a thing. I think back over the last week. So there's a day I just mentioned. We had this sort of relaunch of our activities back in Central Library. So I was coordinating that. I've run a kind of show and tell session with some of the items from our strong rooms. We have 6 of those full of treasure. And that they're always lovely, because I think I kind of take for granted the fact that I have access to books, to items that are rare, that are valuable, that are often beautiful. And then I'll occasionally pull some of them out of the strong room, share some of the stories behind them, let people get quite close to them. And you see the jaws drop and the eyes open. And that's a lovely thing. So that was something. I had a meeting with the National Video Games Museum to discuss a couple of exciting projects we've got coming up in the winter. Been doing some work on the consultation planned for the October. I bought some books, prepared for our next podcast. And then all the usual boring stuff that we all have to do if you work in an office, all the email and keeping in touch and all that stuff. Yeah, I'm not sure about a typical day there.
Yeah. I'm not sure there is quite such a thing, because it involves people, doesn't it?
This is it.
Never quite typical. So one question, especially as the councils are all very cash strapped these days, what would you do with an unlimited budget? Yeah,
so I guess if I can get over the temptation to blow it all on sweets, then I think I'm sitting in the Central Library, and I've mentioned some of the joys of being in the Central Library, but also some of the challenges as well. So I suppose, since I'm sitting here, it would be a new or a transformed Central Library, one fit for the 21st century and beyond, one that that doesn't leak, that has proper access, that's open every day of the week. Those things don't seem too much to ask for, but something much more, a kind of a destination of national significance. That's what Sheffield deserves. A kind of anchor for the city centre, which post-pandemic, like many city and town centres, is desperately in need of an anchor and a destination to draw people into town. I suppose I'm imagining the best lending, best children's library in the country, one with a sense of drama and fun, playfulness, a destination to showcase our special collections, a place where we can come and learn, we can study, can connect with thinkers of the past, present. We can explore our archive collections, discover the city's history, its rich history, their history, where they can access, highest quality cultural experiences, and do that side by side by people that aren't their immediate neighbours, and do it in a way that is accessible, that is low cost or free. So yeah, I guess it's a building which can bring down those barriers and help people mix, share experiences, achieve their potential. We try and do all that, but we could do so much more with the right facilities, with the right infrastructure, with a big enough vision. But I'm being under ambitious. If I've got unlimited budget, then I'd ask for that for every town and city in the UK and beyond.
I suppose it was how did you come to be in libraries? Did you always want to be in libraries, or did you just wake up one day and there you were? Yeah,
pretty much. No, I studied ecology at university, planned to do something with that. In a situation where I needed to get a part-time job, it just happened to be in a brand new branch library in Sheffield at the time. It just opened, and I was part of a new team. It's quite a young team. It's quite a long time ago now. I was young then. It's dynamic. We were building something fresh and new, and it's really exciting. It's really exciting to be part of that. And I could see all those little differences that we were making to that community, which hadn't had a library for decades. And fell in love with the idea of libraries really, and did the library school thing and so on.
Somebody was saying to me the other day that libraries are trusted spaces. And I felt very moved by that, because I kind of know that, but to actually have it said, I thought was really interesting. Trusted.
Yeah, I think that's still true.
Yeah.
I think we've seen that through the pandemic as well, and people have looked to their library for all sorts of different things, which without question have helped them. They've been a lifeline. Now, I'm quoting people now that have come to us and given us that feedback, and been a lifeline to us. You've got me through the pandemic. You've saved me. They're not my words. Those are people that have used our services.
And is that because you were there and open, or because of staff?
I think it's a combination.
Kind of above?
Yeah, I think it's a combination. I think it's some staff definitely going over and above, or just doing what library staff do. We do board games.
Oh, I saw that picture.
Yeah,
board game library.
We've got a really great board game library, which we can't use at the moment. We've not quite got the risk assessment sorted, but by the time this goes out, we'll be up and running again, and we'll be grateful. And
is it just members? Can anybody walk in?
Anyone can walk in. Yeah, actively encourage that, and we hold our pre-pandemic held board game evenings, and did sort of outreachy groups with harder to reach groups as well. The strong rooms are just bank vaults, really. So we've got 6 of them downstairs in the stack, and that's just where we keep some of the special collection items, some of the bits and pieces that are of particular value. Within the strong rooms themselves, and some of the things I was showing at the event I mentioned earlier, we have things like Speed's maps. We have a complete set of John Speed's maps, which is beautiful and extremely rare to have a complete first edition. We have a second edition of Holinshed's Chronicles, so the history book that Shakespeare and Marlowe used when they were writing their history plays. So we had fun the other day pulling that out and looking at the entry for Macbeth and seeing how Shakespeare clearly just lifted sections straight out and used them. It's just amazing. We have a stunning botanical art collection. Gerard's Herbal, this most widely circulated herbal botany, practical use of plants in the 17th century, which is full of really interesting things. So you've got stuff that is, still valid and recognisable as a plant-based treatment of something, but also utter nonsense that is clearly just folklore or myth, or he got away with spreading this stuff. And people believed it for centuries, I think, and all sorts of other things as well. Yeah. If you're ever in Sheffield, let me know and I'll give you a tour.
Oh, I'm coming. Yeah. It sounds like the kind of place where you could just go and just, go into that space where you lose time. And
and the magic is you step in and you spot something different every time.
Yeah. Ooh, fantastic. Thank you so much for your time. Hello. Just to say that every time I watch that interview, I'm just inspired all over again. The libraries are just full of people like this. It's great. What a great job. So thank you very much for watching. After sort of later this evening, I'll send an email, as I mentioned, with a feedback form, which would be great if you could fill in. And we will also send you a link for tomorrow. Tomorrow is the British Library's popular music collection. So we'll be hearing from Andy Linehan, the curator. Absolutely fascinating. Don't miss it. If you do miss it, then all these 3 interviews, Shetland, Sheffield and the British Library, will be available on YouTube in a few days. So I think that's it for this evening. Thank you so much for watching and hope to see you tomorrow. Good night.